Okay, can you see my screen, Dr. Eric?
Yes, the second page. Oh, okay, yeah, I can see it right now. Okay, over to you.
Oh, so good morning. Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. I don't know where you are, so I think it's safe to have that kind of greeting. Good day, everybody. My name is Lorenzo. I am based in Vientiane, Lao, PDR. I'm teaching English in this country. So I am here to present to you my research entitled Voices on the Ground, Appraising Monolingual Curriculum in a Multilingual Setting. So today's presentation will follow this roadmap. First, I will discuss the rationale of the study. Basically, I'll spotlight, there are a lot of reasons why this study was conducted, so I'll just spotlight some of the most important reasons why, or what made me conduct this study. Next, I'll also briefly discuss the research question and the research locale of the study, to be followed by the discussion of the participants of the study and the research design of the study, and sorry about that. And the theoretical lens of the paper. I'll also present very briefly the data gathering matrix of the paper and the research findings of the study, to be followed by the conclusion and recommendation, and then the references. Can I turn off my camera because my connection says it's unstable? Is it okay?
Yes, you can.
Okay, can you turn it off? Dr. Eric, I couldn't see anything. I think it's because of the setting.
I don't think I can turn your camera off, so it's all up to you how to. Okay, let me try. Yeah.
Okay, it's off.
I've turned off your camera. Yeah.
Okay, to make the connection stable. So I'll discuss first the rationale of the study. So as I have said a while ago, there are a lot of reasons why this study was actually conducted. So the first reason is that, being a multilingual teacher myself, such notions as linguistic and cultural diversity became a part of my everyday life. Actually, it's my everyday reality as a multilingual teacher for almost a decade. Second reason would be international schools with English as one of the languages or medium of instruction, are becoming increasingly popular in the global educational landscape. So the setting or the locale of my study is actually an international school, although it's in Lao PDR, but the country adopts, or the school, to be very specific, adopts a monolingual curriculum, which is a British or a Cambridge curriculum. Now, since the school adopts British curriculum or monolingual curriculum, basically we follow monolingual practices. Now, these monolingual practices, with the specific use of a monolingual curriculum, as I have just said, have always been frequently used in English as a second or foreign language programs, with the goal of increasing students' exposure to and familiarity with the target language. These monolingual ideologies, on the other hand, actually limit teacher training. And since it limits the teacher training, it eventually affects the language teaching and learning practices. Cameron and Galloway 2019 foregrounds that with the growth of English as a global language, there is a need for change in English language teaching practices, and that it should reflect the use of English for global communication. So English as a global language encompasses three. That's world Englishes, understanding that English, there are a lot of varieties of Englishes. English is a lingua franca, English being the default language, and EIL, EIL, English is an international language, is actually a new thinking or paradigm for teaching and learning English. Although research on language attitudes is growing, there are few studies on teachers' attitudes towards English conducted from the perspective of their multilingualism. So basically, this is one of the major reasons why I conducted this study. Now, Pina and Sagasa 2017 also remarked that student attitudes have long been considered important in the process of language learning, and they may impact academic achievement, and our attitude as educators towards the languages and our teaching have also been studied for. They may play a paramount role in shaping students' attitudes. Now, our attitudes are likely to play a critical role in the educational lives of multilingual learners or students. That's according to Gorter and Arosena 2020. Now, taking it into the context of my paper, Lao People's Democratic Republic, or simply known as Lao PDR, experiences a high level or high degree or high level of linguistic diversity. Research question. So there's only one research question in this study, and it goes this way. What are the attitudes to follow teaching and learning English using a monolingual code? Although there is only one research question in this paper, it encompasses the different angles of attitudes, as I will discuss further. Research locale. This study is actually conducted or was actually conducted at Kirisak International School in Vientiane, Lao PDR. It's the oldest and it has 32 years from primary to tertiary, employs multilingual teaching staff and the students from different cultural and linguistic backgrounds. Participants of the study. So 6 multilingual students and 6 multilingual teachers participated in this study. They are actually selected based on specific criteria, specific conditions or criteria. Research design. This study follows a systemic functional linguistics discourse analysis study. Now, SFL provides both theory and a method of investigating and examining meaning in language and relating language use to social situations in order to improve people's understanding of language in social life, while DA, or discourse analysis by nature, examines patterns in linguistics according to Scarpegel and 2000. Theoretical lens. So as I have actually an SFL-based study, so I 7 with a specific focus on attitude. Okay, so there are 3 semantic systems, as we all know: attitude, graduation, and engagement. But I specifically focused on the system of attitude. So the system of attitude basically informs the present study. The system of attitude, as we all know, has 3 subsystems. So we have affect, judgment, and appreciation. Data gathering matrix. So let me just present to you a brief overview of how this study was carried out. So as you can see, there's a research question there on the first column. Next, data gathering procedure. There's a cover letter and informed consent to participate in the research. Data collection tool is a narrative as forms. So since this study was conducted at the height of the pandemic, so I think the most practical thing to actually conduct that study or to get the data for that study is actually through Google Forms, and the data analysis tool, okay, of course, is the appraisal tools of Martin and Rose 2007, which contains positive and negative affect, judgment, and appreciation. So this is how the Google form looks like. I think this is for the teacher participant and then student participants. So there are 3 questions. These questions actually, the participants are actually asked to write a narrative essay prompt out from the 3 guide questions given. Now, to establish the reliability of coding, intercoding was done. So there are 2 intercoders, and these intercoders are actually published research, actually been trained by an SFL authority in the country. So here are the sample findings. I don't have the luxury of time to discuss everything, but as you have noticed, this is from the teacher participants' point of view first. So there's affect there. Basically, it's just mix. positive affect, negative affect, mixed. Next, judgment, appraise items, for example, students slash class, too focused, lazy, diligent, do not seem to care, competent, and indolent. So basically it's mixed, positive judgment and negative judgment, for that sake. Next is the appreciation. The Cambridge curriculum was actually appraised, recognized all over the world, anchored on British English, good, standard, famous, helpful, not suitable, and appropriate. So basically, most are positive appreciation. Next, from the student participants' point of view, let's have a look. It's difficult and stressful being a student in a Cambridge curriculum. Student feels happy. Okay, their parents are proud of them being a student in the Cambridge curriculum. For judgment, yeah, also kind of like 50-50. 50% positive and 50% negative judgment. So normally it's negative judgment of normality and yeah, normality, that's the majority. There's also tenacity and capacity, but not much. Mostly it's negative judgment of normality. Next, appreciation, lessons, books, Cambridge curriculum. So also mixed. Now, I'll proceed to the discussion. Now, positive and negative attitudes of the participants, the students and the teachers were actually exposed. Now, for teachers, they feel a sense of pride in teaching under the Cambridge curriculum. They also feel a feeling or a sense of fulfillment. They also feel excitement as teachers of the curriculum, and teachers find it challenging to teach under the said curriculum. They're also satisfied. And according to them, the curriculum offers new learning opportunities for them. And it also offers an opportunity to upskill staff, upskill them, and expand their learning capabilities, and improves their teaching strategies and pedagogy, and eventually
Hi, Lorenzo. I think we've lost you for a bit.
by Cambridge.
Okay, can you go, sorry, can you go back a little bit before you change the size? What did you say? Sorry, we kind of lost you a little bit.
Okay. So the last slide is about the positive.
Yeah,
Yes,
we've got that.
see the slide. Can you see the slide?
Yes, I can.
I was actually talking about some pedagogical implications to teaching English. So this is one of the findings of for the teacher's side. So I was just talking about that a while ago. Now for negative, teachers feel pressured when it comes to assessments given by Cambridge. And according to them, the curriculum is not designed for British students. The curriculum is designed for British students, not for Laos students. Teachers also feel intimidated and overwhelmed with the number of English books. Like I can actually attest to this because
I think we've lost you again. So Lorenzo, you have gone over the first 3 points, but I think we have, lost you since then. So take your time,
not enough teacher training support is given.
And you have stopped sharing your screen. So can you please reshare your screen?
Oh, sorry.
It's all right. You still have like roughly 7 minutes.
Okay. Can you see the screen now?
Yeah, this is where you left off. The starting from the third point, I think.
Yes. So teachers feel intimidated and overwhelmed with the number of English books. So this is true. As an English teacher, I myself, I can attest to this because like I have 5 books and that I have to finish within the year, and I have to teach all those skills to the students because those skills are essentially needed. Okay, those skills are essentially needed for their Cambridge exam. They're unable to finish the lessons and accomplish within the given time frame, and not enough teacher training support is also given. Lessons are too advanced. Students find it hard to follow the lessons. For the students, I'll just wrap it up. They feel happy and proud as learners under the Cambridge curriculum. The activities are actually very collaborative. Because the activities are very collaborative, students become very participative in class. The curriculum is legit, helpful, beneficial, standard, and famous. Mostly this actually came out in the appreciation side of this study. Negative. Of course, students find the lessons very hard, difficult, very hard, stressful, and hard to follow, very advanced. No, it also makes them very stressful. Teachers are approachable, helpful, okay, funny. This is positive. Sorry, I think there's something wrong. Teachers are strict, very strict, not approachable, lazy, and always frown. Conclusion. Now, teachers and students' attitudes greatly affect their teaching and learning of English. That's quite moot. It's quite apparent. And then obviously there is a curriculum mismatch, a mismatch between the curriculum design and the nature of the students. So there is basically a need to tweak the curriculum to address the real concerns of the multilingual teachers and students. I'm not saying to change the curriculum because there's no way you can change Cambridge curriculum, maybe tweak it a bit to address the multilingual, the real concerns of multilingual students and teachers. Recommendations and implications. For future studies concerning appraisal, the researcher urged to consider other subsystems, the subsystems of graduation and engagement in order to uncover the different angles of attitude. Okay, greater depth when these subsystems are utilized. School administrators may consider the findings as basis for curriculum revisitation. Important points to consider. Okay, curriculum greatly affects the quality of education. As I have mentioned, there's curriculum mismatch. And then teacher empowerment leads to students meaningful learning experience and openness. This is actually very important. Openness to diversity of languages, multilingualism. So the school basically, and the school setting, not only the school, but the school setting, the country is actually very diverse. It's very multilingual. So I think it's about time that the school should be open to the diversity of languages and multilingualism. Okay, we need to do away with the EOP or English only policy and allow translanguaging spaces to be very specific in our classroom setting. And then improvement of pedagogical practices, in multilingual and multicultural, in dealing with multicultural and multilingual students. I think that's the end of my presentation. I hope I'm on time. Okay, so here are my references, and that's the end of the presentation. Thank you so much for your attention. I am now ready to answer your question.
Okay, thank you, Lorenzo, for your presentation. So now the floor is open for questions, comments, and thoughts. So you can either turn on your mic or type in the chat room. So thank you. Angela, so we have got the first question.
Yes, I'm very sorry I have the camera off, but it's very late here. It's almost midnight. So on the Sunday, I have, Lorenzo, several questions, and it's a very interesting study, the one you are carrying out. But I would like to focus mostly on the application of the appraisal as an analytical tool. And
yes.
Considering that your sample is composed of people who are not, are they native speakers of English or not? Or English is their additional language?
Yes, English is their additional and foreign language. That's correct.
Okay. So, I have done the same type of analysis with Chilean speakers of English. I mean, English is not their native language. and I have tried to implement the same analytical tool, and I have come to with several problems. One of the problems that I want to ask you if you have had any problems trying to adapt the categories of appraisal to the corpus you have. For example, I noticed that you found several pride in affect, but did you find the negative one, the counterpart? And if you did, how did you come up with a category for that?
Okay,
I wonder,
got it.
yes?
Okay. Got it. Of course, there is. As I have said, it's like 50-50. Most of the teachers, I'll discuss first, okay, on the teachers part. Most of the teachers are really, because I have 6, most of them, okay, like half of them actually have like really negative view of the curriculum. I understand that why it's negative, because they are non-native English language teachers perhaps, and then they feel that the curriculum is really unfit to the students and to the kind of setting, to the kind of school setting, to the kind of setting rather. So there's this thing there's this thing that I really notice also with the students. Some of the students, okay, surprisingly, they like the curriculum for the affect side. They like the curriculum, and then I realized that. So there was, when it was intercoded, okay, because I've mentioned that there was intercoding. Yes. So we find it really very hard to, because I coded myself, and then my advisor also coded. 2 intercoders also intercoded the study based from the original, based on the original response. So yes, you are right, Nam, that there are really how do I say, not discrepancies, but there are really there's that kind of scenario that I encountered. So basically it was decided by my advisor. Okay, that thing was basically decided by my advisor, of course, with the consultations from the intercoders. Okay, just to establish the reliability of, just to ascertain and to establish the reliability of the results of this research. So yes, I acknowledge that really happened.
Yes, but I was wondering whether you have probably come up with an alternative category that could enhance the model for, yes, because I have come to that problem. Like I don't seem to be completely happy about how the model is set. I mean, well, I work with Spanish corpus, but also when I have worked with English, but not native English, it's also been a problem for me that I find that the model as it is presented for English does not quite fit for both my language or also this interlanguage or translanguage, let's say. So I was wondering whether you have proposed an alternative category in the case of affect, for example, or other. Yes. For example, you also categorized indolent as tenacity, and I found that very interesting. So probably, anyways, but
yes, that's a very good insight. That's actually a very good insight. I acknowledge that because that really happened, okay, in this study. Now, to be honest, there is no other like category except from judgment and appreciation.
Yeah, okay. No, I know, but I meant like subcategories, stemming from another category. But we can talk, we can exchange emails if you want to, because I would like to compare our results. We work on similar data. So, yes.
Sure. We what's this? Like, what kind of affect is it? Is it affect, negative affect of unhappiness or dissatisfaction?
Yes, it's a pride, the one that I'm mostly interested in. It doesn't seem to have a counterpart in a negative, and or if there is, I'm not so sure about it. So that's the one I'm mostly interested in.
Thank you.
Pride. Yes.
I'll take note of that. Thank you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, Lorenzo. Sorry for the long question.
It's okay. It's okay. It's very insightful, actually.
Okay, so thank you, Angela, as well. Do we have another question? I think we can take one more question before we move on. Okay, maybe one very quick question for you, Lorenzo. So
Yes.
what's the greatest challenge that you had when you annotate the data, aside from the inter-rater issues or the categories for the language other than English?
What is the greatest challenge that I've actually encountered in like getting the
The
data?
data analysis. Yeah.
The data analysis. Okay.
Yeah.
Number one, although I only considered one subsystem of attitude, it's very, very long. I mean, the analysis is very long, okay? Although it's rich, okay, but it's very, very long. And it took me a very long time to analyze, like comparing the codings, analyzing, and making sense. It's really important to actually make sense of the coding. I think that's quite challenging. This is quite challenging to actually make sense of the coding. So basically, that's it. Okay, it's very arduous in the sense that because like I made a lot of tables. So because it's appraisal, I mean, it's SFL, so it's really complicated. I understand the nature, but because it was my first time, it's actually my first time to, dip my fingers, my body into the ocean of appraisal. So, but I enjoyed, don't get me wrong, I actually really like it because it offers both theory and a method, and it's very, very parallel to each other. So the only thing that I really encountered is the time. It's actually very, very long. Okay, but I am guided by my advisors, so that actually has made the work very easy.
Yeah, must have been lots of hard work. So again, thank you so much for this. And now we would like to move on to the second speaker, Mina Debashish, whose topic is about Hiehua, the construal of attitudinal meanings by Hindi WHT system. So, Mina, are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Hey, great.
Hello,
So
Eric.
can you share this? Hi.
Yes, hi, and good morning to all of you. Yeah, well, it's good morning here, so I'll share my screen.
Sure.
Hope you all had a good day. You started off well. And I would like to close my video if possible. Yes. Can I?
Yes,
am I
you
sharing
can.
this?
You are sharing the PowerPoint file, but not the presentation. But are you already sharing the presentation?
I am.
Okay, so
That
off you go.
Okay, sorry, one second.
Don't worry.
Okay. Fine. Can you see the screen, Eric?
Yes, I can.
You can. Okay. And let me share the audio too, because I have a lot of files here. So I'm going to share my sound files. Okay. Okay. I'm presenting this is a pilot study, and the title is Kya Hua, the Construal of Attitudinal Meanings by Hindi WHT System. At the very outset, I would like to thank the organizing committee for giving me this opportunity to share some of the findings of my preliminary research, a work in progress on the intonation system of Hindi, an Indo-Aryan language spoken in the northern parts of India. At the very outset, I would like to start off by playing the sample of Hindi English, which is part of my earlier paper, which got published in Jan 2023 this year. Please,
Okay, have you completed your assignment on call?
Yes, I have
can you hear?
completed my assignment on call, but I haven't completed my
Yes,
assignment about
no problem.
grammar.
Yeah, same problem is with me. I have started with grammar, but I have many doubts regarding grammar. So I just want to meet Dr. Hari Prasad because I just want to clarify my doubts. But let us see whether we are able to meet him or not.
This is a text, as I said, was the basis for my paper, the Intonational Patterns in a Sample of Spontaneous Indian English Dialogue. As you can see, this sample is shows how in Hindi English, that is English spoken by Hindi speakers, is heavily influenced by the L1, that is Hindi, which is an Indo-Aryan language spoken in the northern parts of India. So the present work is part of a wider ongoing research on Hindi English to determine whether the variations observed in the English spoken by Hindi speakers are systemic, that is, a different system from standard English, or different patterns of selection from the same system, or just a lack of understanding of English intonation systems, which has wider implications in the context of teaching and learning English as a second language in India. The WH interrogative kya hua is a very common and versatile interrogative in Hindi used to seek lexical information about a situation or an event. In a neutral context, it construes a WH question and is realized phonologically with a falling tone, with the tonic pitch contour falling from mid or mid-low to low pitch. Hindi is a head final SOV language with relatively free word order. Here is a small list of work done on Hindi. Yamuna Kachru, 2006, states that WH interrogatives are realized with a rising falling tone, which in my paper, in my work, I found that it is a falling tone rather than a rising falling tone. I'll give you evidence for that. Moore, Hansberger, Nair, Rood, Patil, and Ferry have worked on Hindi sentences, and they have used the Toby system. Nair has worked on Hindi, the lexical stress of Hindi, and has said that the stress syllable has higher pitch and longer duration. And Ferry has used the word phrase language to describe Hindi because they have found that in a declarative sentence, each phrase has a rising contour, and the final phrase would exhibit a falling contour in a declarative sentence. This is a pilot study, as I said, very small in scale, so don't expect much data here. Exploring the phonological realizations of Hindi WH interrogative. And you can see the aim and hypothesis to explore the phonological realizations of Hindi WH interrogative kya hua, which translates into what happened in English. For considering all the possible attitudinal meanings in different contexts of situations, I've selected this WH question because I'm also a native speaker of Hindi, and I've realized that people tend to use this interrogative on almost a daily basis. You find it in many contexts of situations. So I thought this would be interesting to study. And the hypothesis is the key system for Hindi WH interrogative is much more delicate than the one set up for English. Here is the English tone system, which you all must be familiar with from Halliday and Halliday and Matheson's 2004, page 18, which shows a system becoming more delicate as move from left to right. Here are the primary tones, tone 1 to tone 5-3, that is 7 primary tones, 5 simple primary tones and 2 compound tones. I'm sorry, I'm not going to go into all this, but just to show you where my work is situated. And the one in the blue box is showing the secondary tones. the variations in the tonics segment of the tone group and the variations in the pretonic segment of the tone group. So secondary tones of both the tonic segment and the pretonic segment. What I'm interested in is the WH key system, and especially I would like to look into the tonal variations. As you can see, the English tone WH key system has tone 1 for realizing, that is a falling tone for realizing neutral meaning, while tone 2 and tone 5, that is tone 2 which is a rising tone and tone 5 a rise fall, are marked tones which realize the meanings of being polite and surprised respectively. Tone 5 was something, I think, if I'm not mistaken, was introduced in 2008, Halliday and Greaves' book, where it is used to realize, to construe the meaning of surprise. Hindi speakers seem to have more choices in the WH key system, for which I'll be giving evidence in this paper. Method, I have selected the systemic functional framework, which I've been working on using for a long period of time. The prosodic analysis of the data is based on the systemic functional framework set up by Halliday and his colleagues, Halliday and Greaves 2008, and Halliday 1967 and 1970. SFL as a theoretical framework was chosen rather than other frameworks such as TOBY, as SFL theory allows one to explicitly relate low-level stratal phenomena at the expression plane, phonetics and phonology, to higher level abstractions such as lexicogrammar, semantics, and context. For example, the relation of the system of mood with choices in the tone system, and also because it offers a metafunctional perspective on intonational choices. In order to identify all the possible contexts in which kya hua is realized, to construe different attitudinal meanings, a series of informal discussions were held with native Hindi speakers, which led to the setting up of 11 contexts of situations. Later, 10 native Hindi speakers were identified, 5 male and 5 female, to render the WH interrogative kya hua for construing the attitudinal meanings in specific contexts of situations. Thus, 10 attitudinal meanings plus 1 demand for repeating information were rendered by 10 speakers. So total number of samples studied are 110. A very small number, but nonetheless. The procedure in 3 stages: recording, chart analysis, and tabulation of findings. Individual renderings of 10 speakers were recorded in the phonetics lab, EFL University, Hyderabad, India, using the CSL computerized speech lab software and a microphone at a sampling frequency of 44,000 hertz. Pratt analysis, the different readings by each speaker of the 2-syllabled WH interrogative were studied using Pratt, a speech analysis software, which facilitates the storing of relevant acoustic information in different tiers of the text grid, such as duration and intensity of the tone group and the individual syllables, F0 readings and marking of intonation, as can be seen in this small picture on the top, and tabulation of results. The tone used to realize each meaning was marked with reference to the pitch range of the speaker, which would differ not only based on the gender, but also from speaker to speaker within a gender. Later, the F0 readings were with reference to tonic pitch width, along with the intensity and duration readings of the syllables and the tone group were tabulated. These are 2 samples of the pitch scale set up for one of the male speakers and a female speaker. Similarly, pitch scales or pitch ranges were set up for all the 10 speakers. This is to help us to take the readings for the pitch width of the tone, whether it's a falling tone or rising tone or fall rise or whatever, and also to compare the pitch width of the secondary tones. In the next 10 slides, I'll be running through the phonological renderings by a single speaker. As you can see, on the left-hand side, we have the relevant context for realization of the target attitudinal meaning. On the right, the Prague pic that is from Prague displays the phonological realization by, in this case, subject 1, the first speaker, and text grid with tiers for each syllable, showing the duration. For instance, Kya 0.273 and Hua 0.262. The second tier shows the meaning or the attitude, and the third tier, the F0 readings, 268 around this point and 177, that is the low point. And then the next tier shows the marking for intonation. Falling, this is a tone group. A falling tone has been used, F, and Kya is in caps, showing that it's a tonic syllable. And the bottom tier shows that the fall is from mid to mid-low pitch, and the duration is given. So the very first one, in a neutral context where you're demanding information.
क्या हुआ?
Can you hear, Eric?
Yes.
Okay. The second is polite attitude. I'm sorry, I'm not going to read the context because we don't have the time. So polite attitude with a
क्या हुआ?
okay, rising tone. You can see the tones being mentioned in caps here, FR for fall rise and RF for rising falling. So anger,
क्या हुआ?
then
क्या हुआ?
annoyed or frustration using a rise fall tone.
क्या हुआ? क्या हुआ?
This is warning.
क्या हुआ?
Asking for repetition of a certain information which you've lost on, and consoling or cajoling,
क्या हुआ?
especially when you're
क्या हुआ?
talking to a child in a very pampering tone. Disinterest,
क्या हुआ?
a very abrupt kind of,
क्या हुआ?
yeah. Joy or eager, a rising tone,
क्या हुआ?
when you're waiting for some news which you are hoping to get.
क्या हुआ?
Okay, so those are the 11 contexts and the 11 phonological renderings by subject 1. And coming to the comparison, I have seen that in this limited data, neutral, annoyed, and repetition. I mean, repetition is not an attitude, but for these three contexts of situations, all the 10 speakers were using the same tone. For instance, a neutral, which is in red, you can see this red line over here, which is showing the pitch contour of neutral. The speakers used a falling tone.
क्या हुआ?
All the 10 speakers, but I'm playing only one speaker here, that is S3.
क्या हुआ?
And the second one indicates annoyed, which is in blue. You can see this rise fall movement.
क्या हुआ?
This is the annoyed or the frustrated kind of tone.
क्या हुआ?
And the third is asking for a repeat or demanding a repeat of information.
क्या हुआ? क्या हुआ?
Okay. This I have realized Carolyn Ferry says that the variations in her study, she says that there are not many variations found in the tonal variations found in order to indicate attitudes. But as this sample here shows, there is tonal variation in terms of a falling, rise, fall, and a rising tone to indicate three different meanings in three different contexts of situations. Sorry, on the right hand side, all the information is given with reference to the tone being marked,
Mid-low to low indicates that it's a falling pitch from mid-low to low, and the frequency is given in 222 to 154 hertz. The duration of the tone group 0.662 seconds, and hua is a greater in has a longer duration than kya. That is, as you can see, kya hua, 2 syllables. Hua is the second syllable, and for neutral, hua has a longer duration than kya, the first syllable. This is what the information is given on the right hand side. Comparison of all the following tones. Neutral again in red.
क्या हुआ क्या हुआ
Warning
क्या हुआ
in blue.
क्या हुआ क्या हुआ क्या हुआ क्या हुआ
And
क्या
disinterest.
हुआ क्या हुआ
The intensity has just gone down, and the duration is also less, but not much difference in the duration, I would say. And next is a surprise, all rising tones.
क्या हुआ क्या हुआ क्या हुआ
Repetition in blue.
क्या हुआ
Concern in pink.
क्या हुआ
And joy or eager, yellow. As you can see, concern has a greater duration, though it's lower pitched, in the sense you can see this pink contour, a rising contour. It's lower pitched when compared to the realizations for the other attitudes, but it has a longer duration, 0.629 seconds. Next, we have a comparison of the rise or fall rise tones for polite.
क्या हुआ क्या हुआ
That is in pink, and
क्या हुआ क्या हुआ
the consoling, or I would say a pampering kind of tone which you use when speaking with children.
क्या हुआ
The blue one, you can see that it is just tapering down and being elongated. So the consoling attitude requires greater duration, 1.102 seconds when compared to polite, both of them using falling rising tone. And a rise fall tone by speaker 7.
क्या हुआ
Anger, red, which is in red.
क्या हुआ क्या हुआ क्या हुआ
Annoyed.
क्या हुआ क्या हुआ क्या हुआ
Warning. So all the three attitudes here, for all these three attitudes, we find a shift in the focus onto the second syllable, that is hua rather than kya, though kya is also quite intense. The intensity levels are high, but the shift of focus is into the second syllable hua. And annoyed or frustration has a longer duration, 0.972 seconds when compared to anger and warning. This is a tentative WH key system which I'm trying to set up, which is a work in progress. As you can see here, the marked realizations are based on the neutral realization, or the demand for information in a neutral context would be realized with a falling contour or a falling tone, but the marked realizations are based on whether the focus is on the WH element or on the non-WH element. If the focus is on the WH element, then kya, that is the first syllable. Then there's attitudes such as polite, consoling. Polite and consoling are realized with a fall rise. Surprise, concern, and joy are realized with a rising tone, and disinterest is realized with a falling tone, though a lower pitch than a neutral realization. And if the focus is on the non-final or the non-WH element, which we see in the case of anger, annoyed, realization of anger, annoyed, and warning. I'm not able to see here. Anger, annoyed, and warning. The tone is invariably rise fall. Sorry, most of the time the tone is rise fall, but there are variations within this which I haven't really worked on because this is just one interrogative that I've selected. I need to work on more data in order to come up with a more delicate system network where I'm looking into the secondary pitch variations. That's the English key system in comparison. Regarding the results, I find in this limited data that I have, I find that all the 10 speakers were using a falling tone to construe a neutral meaning and a rising falling tone to construe an annoyed or frustrated meaning, and a rising tone to indicate that they would like the speaker to repeat the information that has been given before. And 9 out of 10 speakers used falling tone for disinterest and rising tone to express joy or eagerness. And 7 speakers used falling tone to indicate surprise, and 7 to indicate a rising, anger. They used a rising falling tone. Here are other attitudes being construed with a fall rise by 4 speakers, fall by 5, warning, 5 speakers used a falling tone, and concern, 5 speakers used rising tone, and for consoling, to construe consoling or pampering attitude, they used a fall rise, 5 speakers used a fall rise tone. Based upon the majority preference of tones for construing the attitudes, 4 sets of attitudinal meanings have been set up. For where in the first set you have neutral, warning, and interest. In the second, surprise, repetition, joy, and concern. Third, anger, annoyed, and warning. And the fourth, polite and consoling. When we look at duration, we find that annoyed or frustrated meaning and the consoling meaning requires a greater duration. It is realized with a greater duration when compared to the others. Within the first set, warning requires greater duration, or it's realized with a greater duration. The second set, there's not much difference in duration. The third, we find annoyed having more duration, and in the fourth, consoling requires greater duration. Intensity did not wasn't very useful, though a few things I have noticed, I have put them up here. Regarding pitch width, falling contour for the falling tone is used for realizing neutral and disinterest attitudes. You can see that when a person is expressing disinterest, they seem to be pitching it a bit lower, though it's the same falling tone. And rising tone, which is used for surprise, repetition, eager, joy, and concern attitudes. Generally, it is a mid-low to mid-high rise, from mid-low pitch to mid-high pitch, with concern moving only up to mid-pitch, mid-low to mid. Rising falling tone, I have seen that generally it is around mid-low to mid-low. That is rising movement from mid-low, mid to mid-low, and falling, rising, mid-high, mid-low to mid. There's nothing much to say here because I need to still work on more data to come up with conclusive patterns. Limitations of this data, as you can see, the context of situations need to be fine-tuned to avoid ambiguity between attitudes such as surprise or shock, and polite or concern. Here's an example where the context is given on the left. Shock is usually an attitude to convey is use that to express something negative when you something makes you very sad, angry, or upset. But surprise can be both either positive or negative. So you can see here how one speaker
क्या हुआ क्या हुआ
prefer to indicate a shock. It sounds more like a shock rather than a surprise, whereas the other speaker
क्या हुआ
uses a rising tone. So there is, I need to make the context a bit more clear for the speakers so that they can express the attitudes better. And also I need to collect more data and with longer clauses. And I need to look at more mood types, and the number of informants also has to be increased. And I'm planning to work on the spontaneous speech. So these are my limitations, and I would also definitely like to do a perception test, which I haven't done for this paper, which I was planning to, but I couldn't get around to doing it. So future research I would like to cover, look into all the limitations and try to see that I would be in a better position to come up with a tone system, both the primary tones and the secondary tones for Hindi, because this would help me as a teacher to look into the problems that students are facing when they are speaking English and how they can overcome some of the problems, not just trying to maintain the English accent, but I want them to be intelligible, be able to express their attitudes and emotions better. So I think setting up a system for Hindi language and making them understand what the tone system, and also to help making them understand the English tone system would help them to move from one system to the other and express themselves better. So that's the end of my presentation. These are some of the references. Thanks for listening me out.
Thank you, Mina, for the presentation. Now the floor is open again for questions, comments, and thoughts. So we have a few minutes left, so make sure you can, we can ask one or two more questions. Okay, maybe I've got one for you, Mina. So are there any other, mechanisms or tones that reflect emotions? For example, like discourse markers or intonation, I mean interpersonal markers in Hindi.
I'm sorry, I didn't get you.
I mean, for example, in Cantonese, there may be like sentence final particles that mark emotions.
Oh, yes.
So aside from kia hua, yeah. So what about in Hindi? So are there other like markers that would, construe attitude?
Yeah, I get you. I don't think so. Because Hindi bases it more on the intonation rather than markers as such. Because I did find such markers in, for instance, a Mizo language, which is spoken in northeastern India, which is a tone language, where certain markers are used to indicate certain attitudes, or also to indicate the mood type, but that's not the case in the case of Hindi. It doesn't work like that, as to the best of my knowledge. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. It's a very interesting study. So looking forward to your more comprehensive data analysis later on. So thank you again.
Thank
now,
you.
I will,
Thanks.
we'll move forward to the next speaker, Michelle Alami. Hi.
Hello.
Oh, Madalena.
Yeah, thank you for the time. Thank you, Mina, for your presentation. It's very interesting.
Thank you.
Relating to the concept. Yeah, the topic that you mentioned, that if we relate to the context of situation that you mentioned, that when they are different of that intonation, does power affect the difference of that use of kiawa?
Yes, definitely, because that is something that I have to look into. But based upon auditory perception, I would say that just definitely power does have, bring in certain variations in terms of. I would say that if it is a falling tone, maybe it would be higher pitched or having a greater intensity. If someone is in a higher a status or a higher position. So I hope this is what you wanted to, was that the question you asked?
Yeah.
Answer you?
When they have the different intonation, when they are anger or and something like that, does the relating to the context, the speaker in this case, does the power of the speaker affect the use of the different intonation or not? The
It
first
does.
and the second.
Yeah.
The second one, relating to the field, in which
sorry, Madalena.
context?
Sorry,
Pardon?
Madalena. I think we have to move on because it's already like
Sorry.
17 past 11. So can we keep the conversation in the chat room so we can chat over there with a
Yes,
question?
please.
Thank you very
Yes.
much.
Thank you. Thanks.
So yeah, can we please move on to the next speaker, Marshall Alatmi, whose topic is on engagement resources in paratext of video games and appraisal analysis of promotional material of God of War Ragnarok. So I will play the video right now. So after the video session, I will ask you for thoughts and questions again. Okay, so please wait for me.
Hello everyone, my name is Michelle Al-Ajmi. I am a lecturer at Princess Noor.
Okay, can everybody see the screen?
Yeah.
And
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Fantastic. So I'll move on.
University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and I'm currently studying for a PhD at King Saud University in Riyadh as well. My presentation is going to be about engagement resources in paratexts of video games and appraisal analysis of promotional material on God of War Ragnarok. The areas of focus for my presentation are going to
It's
be
not clear.
introduction, literature review, methodology, results and discussion, and ending with a conclusion. As for the introduction, in the language of evaluation, Martin and White in 2005 introduced their appraisal theory, which is a framework used to study the interpersonal meaning of language. This framework is situated within Systemic Functional Linguistics, SFL, which was developed by Michael Halliday. As Halliday's SFL theory proposed that one function of language is creating interpersonal meaning, Martin and White's appraisal theory focuses on the interpersonal meaning carried out by participants in communication. For the sake of language analysis, engagement system has been employed in this paper to examine the promotional content on the action-adventure video game called God of War Ragnarok, as this game won 6 prizes in the Game Awards in 2022. It won these awards for the Best Narrative, Best Audio, Design, and Innovation in Accessibility, Best Performer, and Best Score and Music. Thus, this paper aims at investigating the engagement resources employed in the promotional content on the game through applying the engagement system. talking about video games and marketing to introduce the paper and the topic of the paper. Video game industry marketing research has received less attention compared to music and movies industry. In the 20th century, video games industry has grown immensely. And speaking of marketing, it can be defined as engaging game players and making them interested in the game. Consumer advertising is one element of advertising that is addressed to people to promote a service or a product. Advertising changed with the invention of the internet, which made it digital and can reach larger audience. And digital advertising makes the communication between the marketer and the consumer a two-way communication where the consumer can exchange opinions and feedback in the products promoted. In this respect, gaming companies are employing social media channels to advertise their products and draw in new customers in an effort to reach a larger audience. In order to introduce the discourse of advertising and how this relates to the analysis of the language of the video game that I'm going to present today, advertising started in ancient times, and this helped with forming a kind of discourse, which Danassi in 2015 describes as a way of presenting something in a socially appropriate way so as to persuade people to purchase it in the same way that effective orators attempt to convince audiences to accept their messages and act upon them. Advertising discourse has gained popularity in the 50s of the 19th century as it has been used in many domains such as political campaigns. That is because of its persuasive nature. An interest in this kind of discourse is actually due to the simple but powerful, persuasive emotional language it uses, and also the effects that this language has on individuals and society. Game culture has actually many types of discourses and texts. And talking about game paratexts, actually game paratexts can be considered one of these types of discourses. Talking about paratext framework, this framework was proposed by the literary theorist
So I'm wondering, Marshall, if you actually have a full version of the video. So this is what we have. That's all we have for the video?
Actually, it was 20 minutes, but I'm not sure if you have it or I can play it from my device.
Okay, so maybe you take over and continue the recording. Can you?
I'll see what I can do.
Okay,
Just
thank you.
moments, please.
Yeah. Yeah, don't worry, as long as you can play the full video. I think it's the first one with the largest file size.
It is 4 minutes, but I'm not sure it was 20. I'll check again in the folder. Please just.
Okay. Okay.
Is that fine now?
It's not. So maybe you will have to share the screen with the sound on.
Okay.
Because you're only sharing the Finder screen.
Is this?
No, it's not playing. So perhaps you can stop sharing first, and then you reshare the screen, and you just share the desktop. That will be, yeah, better.
By the game itself, but is it fine now?
No, can you stop sharing first, and then you reshare the screen? Yeah, when you share the screen, there is a checkbox on the bottom left corner say share sound. So you click on check share sound, and then you just share this desktop, and then we'll see the video. Okay, still can't see it.
How about now?
No, it's still your conference folder file. Yeah, your conference folder. Unfortunately, still the same screen. So can you share with us what you did as you share the screen?
Okay, I will do my best.
Yeah, don't worry. It happens. So ladies and gentlemen, while you're waiting, we have the third presentation right now, but we are encountering some technical issues. So hopefully we'll resume the presentation in maybe 1 or 2 minutes. And the topic that we are having now is engagement resources in paratext of video games and appraisal analysis of promotional material of God of War Ragnarok. Can never pronounce the word right. Yeah, thank you so much for your understanding, Mana. So a little bit of a preview as we are waiting. The last presentation of the session today will be presented by Evia Hunjur, whose topic is on dialogism in applied linguistic research articles, engagement resources in introduction sections by professional scholars. So after this presentation, we will then have a short afternoon tea break, and then we will go back to the main room to have our second plenary speech of the day by Associate Professor Shoshana Dreyfus, Shishi. We get a talk on empathy to activism. So now we have Marshall back. So now we count on your presentation. I'm so sorry about the video.
No, it's all fine. It happens. Okay, so
Okay, please proceed.
Yeah, we stopped at game culture, and that game culture has many types of discourses and texts, and game paratext can be considered one of them. As for paratext framework, it was proposed by the literary theorist Gerard Janet in 1987, which he applied to written books. Paratext, according to him, are texts that are located outside the book's original text and which prepare the reader for the original text. Then, this theory was brought to the field of advertising and gaming. Seawold in 2021 adds that when we play games, we are influenced not only by the game itself, but also by the material that surrounds it and interacts with the game world. These elements are actually Janet's paratexts. She also mentions that paratexts could have many forms and functions, and one of these forms is what she called marketing paratexts. According to her, marketing paratexts serve a unique function since players come across them prior to playing the game itself. So it is through official corporate announcements or trailers or any examples of advertisements, whether official or non-official, that the players can know what to expect from the game itself. So the importance of paratexts is argued by Gray and Jenkins in that they influence the decision as to whether the audience should consume the text or not. According to Kernan, trailers are considered persuasive texts because the use of narrative to persuade, according to Amsterdam and Brunner, is accomplished by personalizing the narrative in order to make it more common sense. As for the literature review, the theoretical framework is Martin and White's engagement system, who argue that language of evaluation is central to appraisal theory, through which writers and speakers construe an interpersonal meaning. As we know, appraisal framework is realized in 3 areas of meaning: attitude, engagement, and graduation. Engagement deals with the attitudinal resources and authorial voices in discourse, which is the focus of my paper. And engagement is realized through expanding and contracting. Through using expansive formulations, the speaker or writer is open for any other voices, whereas using contracting formulations make the audience at distance from the speaker or the writer. And this is the engagement system metrics. As for the review of the related studies, in the discourse of advertising, particularly written advertisements, appraisal framework was applied in a few studies. A study conducted by Marskawadi and others compares between the use of engagement resources by beginner and professional marketers in their business presentations. And according to the study, both professional marketers and beginner marketers have used the 2 resources of engagement. But the difference between the 2 groups, as indicated in the study, is that that professional marketers know more facts since they are the experts, whereas beginner marketers give their opinions more than stating the facts about the products marketed. In 2020, Creason attempted to investigate the use of persuasive monoglossic propositions in British advertisements to show the stance positioning of writers and the persuasive effects they have in these advertisements. So the study has shown that these monoglossic propositions employed in the advertisements were used for persuasion despite their informative function to describe the products promoted. When it comes to digital advertising and video games, appraisal theory is almost absent in the studies of video game promotion. However, there are many researchers who imported the theory of paratext and applied it to video games for marketing purposes. For example, Franken analyzed the trailer's promotional paratext of the game Star Wars Battlefront 2nd, as it was controversial on its release. The focus of this study was to find a connection between the trailer and what influence the trailers may have on the game fans. The study concluded that trailers can lead to raising the hype around the game, where gamers can be representative of the messages within the game trailer. So the study also emphasized the importance of examining the promotional paratext critically. It can be noticed from the studies laid out on this part, research on engagement in the discourse of advertising of video games is non-existent, which stresses the importance of this study. As for methodology, beginning with data, I'm having 4 official trailers before the release of the game and 3 interviews. These official trailers were published on the PlayStation's official YouTube channel. And for the interviews, there were 3, one published on the IGN's YouTube channel, which is known for gaming news and updates, and one on the official YouTube channel, of a PlayStation, and the last one was on one of the fans of the game itself, the channel of John Ford. The total number of words is 9,723 words. So we do have 2 sets of data. For analysis, I use the UAM corpus tool to annotate the data and to generate the statistical data in terms of frequencies. And since I'm having 2 sets of data that are unequal in number, I use the, let's say I calculated the frequencies per 1,000 words, which would be more accurate and reliable. For the results and discussion, you can see that heteroglossic formulations are more than monoglossic formulations. They were about 68.6% as opposed to monoglossic formulations, which were 31.4%. And as for the contraction and expansion, in both data sets, contraction was more than expansion used in the data sets with 50% in trailers, and expansion it was 18.1, and for interviews it was 43.3 for contractive formulations it was 17.7 as expansive formulations. For contractive formulations, as you can see, we do have disclaim formulations that are more actually than proclaim. So there was preference for disclaim formulations. And as for contracts, for the trailers, also for interviews, it was similar. Disclaim resources were 27.8%, while it was 15 in proclaim resources, 15.5 for proclaim resources. For expansion, expansive formulations and trailers were more than, entertain formulations were more than attribute formulations. It was 14.3 in trailers, and attribute formulations were 3.8. As for the interviews, it was 15.9 for entertain resources, and it was only 1.9 in attribute resources. So the objective of the current paper is to investigate the engagement resources in the promotional paratexts on God of War Ragnarok. And the results revealed showed that monoglossic and heteroglossic formulations were both used in the trailers and the interviews. And the purpose of using considerable amount of monogloss in the trailers was narrating the story of the game, since the narrative nature of trailers make the paratexts more persuasive. And this goes in line with what Prison concluded and what Kernan in Amsterdam and Brunner asserted. I don't think that I'm going to go through examples since we don't have more time, but I will go through the analysis itself. So for the interviews, the director and producer of the game used monoglossic prepositions as well. And the purpose of employing monogloss is because the director and the producer did not want to allow for dialogic alternative voices before the launch of the game. So using instances of monoglossic formulations make their talk and their interview more persuasive as part of promotional paratext. And the use of monogloss for persuasion effects in advertisements aligned with the Prison's study, in which he found that monogloss has a persuasive effect on the addressees. For heteroglossia, it was used in both data types, more than monoglossia. The results revealed that contract disclaimed resources were more employed than contract proclaimed resources in both data sets. For the trailers, using disclaimed resources increases the hype around the game. Trailers proved to have a huge influence on fans of games, as concluded also by Franken and emphasized by Amsterdam and Brunner because of their narrative nature. For the interviews, the director and the producer of the game preferred using more disclaimed resources because they knew more about the game before its launch. So this goes in line with Marskawati and others who concluded that professional marketers preferred using disclaimed resources since they are the experts. And using, As presented in the results section, expensive prepositions were less employed as opposed to contractive prepositions. For the trailers, expansion accounted for 18.21 and it is 17.7 for the interviews. Entertain was the first subcategory that occurred more than attributes. Entertainment resources were 14.3% in the trailers and 15.9% in the interviews. And using authorial voices as when a possible positions make the addressee able to put his position out. Yeah, and to conclude the presentation, I mean, this paper is important and significant because it would enrich literature and will fill in the gaps since there are no studies using engagement resources studying the promotional content of video games. Also, it would help marketers to analyze, for example, advertisements because they are, let's say, released in order just to make sure that they are persuasive. This is the end of my presentation, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you so much, Marshall, for doing the the contingency presentation without the video, and very nicely done. So now the floor is open for questions and thoughts and comments if you have got any. Okay, perhaps I've got one question for you, Marshall, but it's not going to be a difficult one, for I don't know a lot about gaming discourse. Since you've done so much on the engagement analysis, I would like to know a little bit more about the implications. So you talked about how marketers can analyze the text for greater, advertising effect. So can you share with us a little bit more about maybe how marketers who don't have a lot of like SFL analytical skills or knowledge can tap into what you have found so that they can understand their text better?
Yeah, this actually highlights the importance of SFL in marketing as well. So this is actually I mean, it is something that should be considered in the marketing field by people who are in charge, not just to train marketers to, for example, analyze any types of advertisements, just to make sure that they are more persuasive and to make sure that if there are any additions that they can make in order just to make that advertisement, let's say 80% persuasive and not to have, let's say, not just to lose consumers. I mean, from the beginning. So this actually would save time and effort for marketers as well.
Yeah, so like increasing the consumers or customers buy-in by appealing to their or aligning with them would be very important at the very beginning.
So
thank you. Yeah, yes, Marshall.
There must be
Sorry?
some training programs, let's say, for marketers, so to use SFL since it is important and improved its effectiveness even in marketing discourse.
Okay, I see. Well, we all count on you in this regard.
Thank you so much for giving me the chance.
Okay, thank you so much again. And last but not the least, so could you please, yes, thank you. I will share my screen again so that you can see the last video presentation by Athia Hanjo, whose topic is titled Dialogism in Applied Linguistic Research Articles, Engagement Resources in Introduction Sections by Professional Scholars. I'll play the video now. Hang on a second.
Hello everyone, and thank you very much for joining my presentation today on Dialogism and Applied Linguistics Research Articles, Engagement Resources and Introduction Sections by Professional Scholars. I am Athir Hanjour, a PhD student at King Saud University and a faculty member at Jubail Industrial College, both of which are in Saudi Arabia. The outline of my presentation goes as follows. We have the introduction, research gap, theoretical framework. We'll touch upon these very quickly, and then we will dig deeper into the methodology, results, discussion, and conclusion. Now, authorial voice, its interaction with other voices have been studied extensively in the literature, and to the point that there has been a number of frameworks to analyze discourse. The most influential of these is the appraisal framework by Martin and White. Now, the appraisal framework provides us with the tools for analyzing interaction, for analyzing academic research articles, authorial voice, stance, interaction with the audience. It's extremely influential in that regard. The appraisal framework have been used in multiple disciplines and have been used to analyze particular sections of research articles. For example, some have focused on the literature review of research articles, others have focused on discussion sections. However, very few studies have focused on the introduction section, despite its importance. And even these studies that focused on the introduction, they analyzed it using either the attitude or the graduation of the framework. Only one study that I was able to find during conducting this research that used the engagement system in analyzing introductions of applied linguistics research articles, which is the one by Zhu and Nisi in 2019. Another reason for focusing on applied linguistics in this article is because I think linguists are more aware of their selected locutions, of their selected linguistic choices, because they are specialized in the field of linguistics. They understand the effect these locutions or linguistic choices have on the reader, and therefore I think it is extremely important to study the language used by linguists in their research articles. The research question is therefore, what is the frequency of the different engagement resources employed in the introduction section of applied linguistics research articles published in high impact journals? The theoretical framework that we are applying or that we are using in the study is the appraisal framework, which is based under the interpersonal meta function of systemic functional linguistics, and it consists of three subsystems that are attitude, graduation, and engagement. The engagement model refers to the mechanism by which authors and speakers express their stance in relation to other voices and sometimes to their own voice. The engagement system is extremely important in analyzing research articles or academic papers, because the interaction in academic papers happen at two levels. The first level is the internal level, which is the author's voice. The second level is the external level, which is other voices, including the audience's voice. Therefore, the engagement model is the most suitable for analyzing this interaction or discourse in academic papers. The engagement subsystems or the engagement model consists of two main subsystems that are monoglossic resources and heteroglossic resources. In the monoglossic subsystem, prepositions or opinions are presented as facts or as taken for granted. However, in the heteroglossic resources, authors acknowledge the presence of other voices. They bring forward other voices, but they do so by either supporting them, rejecting them, or being neutral and just presenting them in the discussion. The monoglossic resources in this study were not analyzed in details, so utterance or clauses were identified as being monoglossic, and that is it. Although monoglossic resources can be bare assertions or presuppositions, however, in this study we did not annotate for the different resources of the monoglossic subsystem. Heteroglossic resources are more detailed than monoglossic resources. We have two main subsystems, which are contract and expand. In contract, the dialogue is closed down, so other voices are presented, but there is no room for discussion. In expand, the space for dialogic interaction is widened, or it's opened up. Contract resources can either be disclaim, proclaim. Expand can either be entertain and acknowledge. Now, I will not talk about each resource in here. I'll just talk about the addition of justify in this model. Now, justify has been there before the most influential book by Martin and White in 2005, the language of evaluation. However, it was neglected afterwards, although it is extremely important in my opinion. I think it is important because there is this sense of dialogic interaction between the author and the reader, because authors usually present their proposition, and they might anticipate that the reader could question or reject this proposition, and therefore the author provides evidence or provides justification for his proposition. And to me, I think this is a very good example of dialogic interaction, and it is actually dialogic in nature. This is actually supported by White in 2003 in his paper. He used justify as a subsystem of the engagement, and in more recent papers in 2020 and 2021, also Fryer 2019 used justify in his paper, and Martin 2008 discussed the possibility of justify and its use. Another thing that you may notice in here is the addition of bolster as a subsystem. Now, in a personal communication in 2023 between White and I, he suggested that these two resources, endorse and justify, could be grouped under one subsystem that is named bolster, because both of these resources strengthen a proposition. So they have the strengthening component in common between them, which makes them members of one group, which is bolster or bolstering. Therefore, this is what I'm using in my article in here. Now, I have to mention the importance of context and co-text in analyzing engagement resources, because they're not only dependent on grammatical form. Context and co-textual factors vary the meaning or change the meaning. So the annotation process could be highly subjective, according to Foley 2018, which means that authors or researchers need to review their annotation multiple times in order to achieve a point or the highest objective annotation possible. My methodology, now the corpus consists of 16 articles, all of which are from high impact journals, or 6 high impact journals in the field of applied linguistics. The impact factor of these selected journals ranges between 3.063 to 5.24. They were published in the past 3 years, 2021, 2022, and 2023. The word count of these of the introductions of these articles ranges between 432 and 758. The total word count of the corpus is 8,859. Now, in regard to the annotation, it was done manually because it provides a comprehensive and detailed analysis, and because, as we said, the engagement resources are very context dependent. Therefore, researchers need to not only manually annotate, they need to review their annotation multiple times to reach the most objective annotation possible, as mentioned earlier. Now, Foley 2018 recommended that the annotation process should carefully apply 7 or follow 7 steps. The first is defining the scope, which is the research question of our article or our study. Select and configure an annotation tool. In this study, we use the UAM corpus analysis tool, which has proven to be very effective, but we have done the annotation manually. we have drafted a context-specific annotation manual. The first stage of this was to review previous research, their appendices, and the example they have used, and draft a manual or a model for our annotation. So a group of locutions and the subsystem they belong to. Then we have analyzed around 4 articles of our corpus, edited the manual or the module that we have at hand, and then we continued with the rest of the articles and edited the manual or the module that we have at hand. So this process of model annotate has been very recommended in the literature. One recommendation was done by Foley 2018, and I can say that it has proven to be very effective in my study, because after every revision the model is edited as well, until I have reached the point where there were no more edits to the model. After that, I have re-annotated or revised my annotation like 2 weeks after the final revision of the model. That, in my opinion, have increased the reliability and validity of the analysis, and I really recommend following these 7 steps as carefully as possible in any research that deals with the engagement or other research or other subsystems of the engagement model, to avoid the subjectivity of the annotation process. And in regard to analyzing the results, of course, using the UIM corpus analysis tool, frequency was counted for each instance of a resource in the data, and it provided us with all the counts and all the details needed. In regard to the results, as we can see in here, there were more heteroglossic resources than monoglossic resources in our corpus. So 79% are heteroglossic and only 21% are monoglossic, which is in line with previous research across different disciplines and across different sections of a research article. And this actually provides an evidence that in academic writing there is a dependence on the exchange of voices, views, and previous knowledge, which is especially important in soft fields or soft disciplines where there is a lack of concrete evidence. And to replace that lack, or to make up for that lack, authors put more effort into building a convincing case for their arguments, and they seek support from alternative voices or from a community of voices. Now, a deeper look into heteroglossic resources, contract and expand. We have more expansive resources than contract resources in our data. The difference is not big, but there remains a difference. So 57% for expand and 42% for contract. In here we can have a look at the different resources used and how they were, or the percentage of each of these resources. Entertain the highest, followed by pronounce, acknowledge, justify, encounter at close proximity, deny, endorse, distance, affirm, and concede. They're very close as well in percentage. Now, as we can see in here, expansive resources are not many, but they were used more than contract resources in our data. So, finding one, more expand than contract, which means that applied linguistics authors are more cautious when dealing with alternative views. So instead of closing down the dialogue, they tend to welcome the possibility of other views, which is supported by Highland 2011 and is in line with other fields as well, or other studies in the field of applied linguistics and studies in other fields as well, which again suggests that researchers or the language used in academic research tends to welcome the possibility of other voices. It doesn't close down the dialogue. Now, proclaimers and disclaimers. As we can see in here, there are more proclaimers than disclaimers. So proclaimers are in green, disclaimers are in orange, but in disclaimers we can see that counter or concession is used more than deny. So there is a difference between them. However, for the other categories of proclaimers, there is a difference, although not a big difference. So 10.50% and 12.90 endorses the least proclaimer used in our data. Not the least though. There is affirm and concede, which are members of Concur or the subsystems of Concur. Now, more details into proclaimers and disclaimers. So disclaimers constitute like 34% of the contract resources in our data. Proclaimers are 65% of contract resources in our data. So there is a huge difference between the two. This difference is also evidenced in Friars, Yahya and Yusuf and Abdi and others, and Louis and others. So it is in line with previous research. However, other studies also have concluded the opposite. For example, Zuan-Nisir and Rahman, they have found that disclaimer resources were employed more than proclaimer resources. However, we can say that this is because they did not include justify in their analysis. In our data, as you can see in here, justify is like 10% of the data, which means that it may have shifted the balance towards not here, sorry. Justify, yeah, in here. Justify is like 24% of the contract resources used, which means that this percentage has shifted the balance towards proclaimers. So yeah, this is the only difference between their studies and my study, which could be the reason for the difference in results. Now, overall findings, as we can see in here, Entertain is the highest used resource, and there is no comparison between the use of Entertain and other resources, which could tell us that authors tend to be careful and cautious when presenting their propositions. They tend to use hedging instead of bare assertions, or instead of explicitly endorsing others or affirming or conceding. Now, pronounce, acknowledge, justify, and counter, and here we can get a sense of the author's acknowledgement of other voices, not only using the acknowledged resources but also with pronounce as well. The use of justify could prove that they tend to justify their propositions if they think the reader is at odds with their proposition. Also, counter could highlight the opposing view, but also providing the author's view, so they're not neglecting other voices in their propositions. However, deny, endorse, distance, affirm, and concede, they are used the least. As we said, affirm and concede, yeah, we're gonna talk about these now in a minute. So this is just a glance at how the findings are presented in here. So we're gonna start with counter and deny. So we can see we have more counter than deny in our data. So instead of directly negating a proposition, they tend to welcome or provide the counter argument or a concession, which is unlike hard sciences, in which scholars have more confidence in shared assumptions than in soft disciplines, and they may use negation more. Now, another finding is concur is the least. So as we can see in here, affirm and concede are the least used, which might mean that authors avoid overt assumptions on the views of their readers. They tend to strengthen their propositions by providing a justification or using other voices or explicitly stating their own opinion or view. This is in line with other studies as well. Now, pronounce, as we can see from the data in here, is the second most used resource. So entertain the highest and then pronounce, which means that they tend to overtly state their voice using pronouncement resources, which is in line with other studies, except for the studies conducted in medical field or medicine, which could be the reason for the difference or the discrepancy between in the findings between the studies done on applied linguistics or sub-disciplines and the ones done in medicine papers. Now, justify and endorse. According to our corpus, authors tend to justify their propositions rather than presenting other views as undeniable. So they prefer to provide the justification instead of just seeking support from other views and presenting them as undeniable. Now, comparison is difficult in here because, as I said before, no studies that I was able to find that incorporates the use of justify into the engagement model and analyzing applied linguistics articles or fields in general. So, but I have Highland in 2011, he suggested that authors in soft discipline focus on claim making negotiations to make their propositions stronger, which could be used as a support to our finding in here that justify resources are used more in the articles we have analyzed in applied linguistics, which is a soft discipline as well. Now, again, as we can see in here, contract is used less than expand, so we have higher percentage of expand resources. So expansive resources, as we said, open up the dialogic space for alternative voices by using hedging and other entertain resources. And authors in applied linguistics do not only entertain other views, they also acknowledge the presence of other views, but they avoid criticizing them overtly, which really goes in line with the view that academic research engage with readers and strengthen their voice, mostly by referring to other studies. But they avoid explicitly stating criticizing other voices, which is the use of distance in here. So they are very cautious by using entertain resources such as hedging or acknowledging the author or the viewpoint or by whom it was mentioned before. And this is in line with previous research as well. So if we look in here, we have entertain, as we said, the highest. So hedging, other models as well, acknowledge in here among the highest, and then distance the least, so they avoid criticizing others. Implications. Our study provides evidence and support for previous research in the literature. It adds new evidence, deeper analysis because of the use of the overlooked subsystem of justify, and it helps novice authors and postgraduate students understand the techniques used by scholars in other fields to engage readers, strengthen their voices. The limitations. Now, the study could have been enhanced by a number of elements. For example, the inclusion of a larger corpus, spending more time on the annotation and longer breaks between revisions, including an inter-rater reliability checks or stability measures. However, due to time constraints, these elements were not included, but our annotation was reviewed multiple times on different days during a period of 3 weeks, and we hope that we have reached the most objective analysis possible. However, future research should take these into consideration and create a timeline for their annotation. Future research analyze the introductions of applied linguistics research by employing attitude, engagement, and graduation model, all three. Another suggestion would be analysis of the appraisal resources in different moves and steps of the introduction section. So we can combine the engagement model or the appraisal framework in analyzing the different steps used in introduction sections, the different moves and steps suggested by Swales. Thank you very much. I hope you have benefited from my presentation today, and if you have any questions, please do ask. This is my email, and these are the references for my article. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll pause the video right here so that you can copy the email address if you've got any questions for Athia after this session. So Athia is actually here with us right now. So if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts, the floor is open. So you can please either turn on the mic or you can type in the chat box. So yeah, here you go.
Now, before receiving questions, I'd like to thank all of you in here for bearing with me now as I watch the video with you, the recording. I've noticed that I was very fast in speaking. While speaking, it was very detailed and long. Thank you very much for bearing with me.
Okay, any comments, any thoughts? Okay, Manasa, thank you so much, Athia, for this informative presentation. I've got one for you, just a very quick one. So now your study is focused on applied linguistic articles. So in terms of the patterns you have identified right now, do you think, so how do you think the pattern would change across different disciplines? Like, so for example, within humanities, you have, English literature, or maybe you have social sciences, or to the best of your knowledge, how do you think the patterns would change?
All right, thank you, Eric, for this question. Now, can you hear my voice?
Yes, loud and clear.
All right, so I think I have an idea of how the pattern would change across very different fields, for example, medicine and applied linguistics. However, across different soft disciplines, it's not really clear to me, because I think the main difference between soft and hard sciences is that in hard sciences, they have evidence, they have concrete evidence. So they would use facts more than opinions, which means they would close down the dialogue more and and they are, let's say, most probably less cautious than in soft disciplines. However, in soft disciplines, as we all may know, it's mostly opinion or viewpoints that we are sharing, discussing. It's very few instances of hard evidence that we have in soft disciplines, and that is actually the main difference that affects or causes other differences that we may find across these bigger umbrellas of fields, so soft and hard sciences.
Okay.
I hope that I have answered your question.
Yeah, comprehensively. So I look forward to your further investigation. So if you have time, if your grants allow, so maybe you would like to move across other disciplines. Thank you so much again for all. Yeah.
I actually have conducted a study on thematic analysis and thematic progression patterns. It is a comparative study between biotechnology articles and articles in psychology. So yeah, more comparative studies across soft and hard sciences are needed, and across the, for example, different disciplines in one major specialty, for example, applied linguistics or humanities.
Okay.
So they are all in there.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for answering my question. And I think that's the end of our afternoon session for now, the parallel session. So now we will have a 15-minute afternoon tea break. And after that, don't go yet. So make sure you go back to the main room and enjoy the second plenary speech by Associate Professor Shoshana Dravet. Shushi's talk is titled From Empathy to Activism, an Analysis of Letters to the Minister, which resulted in successful outcomes for a person living in a severe intellectual disability and their family. And after the plenary, we also have a series of book launch, so don't miss them. So now you can take a break. So thank you so much once again, but I'll see you in the main room.